at the mess you've made! Do you think this house runs itself? After everything, you dare disappoint me again?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to. Please, it won't
Eleanor,
happen
that's
again.
enough. Let her explain.
Stay out of this, Rob.
He froze at the doorway. The marble floor gleamed beneath the sunlight, but what caught his breath wasn't the beauty. It was her. A young black girl, on her knees, scrubbing the floor of his mansion like she didn't belong there. Her hands were raw, her eyes downcast. And yet something about her face. It struck him. Familiar. Painfully familiar. He didn't know her name. Not yet. But before the day ended, the truth would tear his world apart. This is the story of the billionaire who came home and met the daughter he once abandoned. Welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It had been 6 long years since Richard Albright had last walked through the grand marble doors of his mansion. The billionaire investor had built empires across continents, turning failing corporations into global giants. To the world, he was the symbol of success, a man who had it all. But beneath that perfect exterior was a silence he never spoke of, a broken family, a daughter he had not seen since she was a child. His estate sat high on the coastal cliffs, overlooking the city lights that flickered like distant promises. Everything about it screamed wealth, imported art, white columns, polished floors so clean they mirrored the chandeliers above. Yet as Richard stepped inside, something felt different this time. The air was heavy. The echo of his footsteps didn't greet him with comfort. It reminded him of the emptiness he had built his fortune around. He had returned home unannounced. The staff wasn't expecting him, nor was anyone else. He wanted silence, a night to reflect before the big merger, another deal that would make headlines. But life has a strange way of showing you what truly matters, especially when you've spent years running from it. As he entered the main hall, his eyes caught a movement near the staircase. A young black girl, no older than 17, was on her knees scrubbing the floor, her worn uniform stained with soap water. Her hands trembled slightly, but her focus was unwavering. There was something in the way she moved, graceful, careful, almost familiar. Richard paused. For reasons he couldn't explain, his chest tightened. The girl didn't look up. The sound of the brush against marble filled the silence, and for the first time in years, Richard felt uneasy. He didn't know it yet, but this moment, this ordinary, quiet encounter, was about to unravel every belief he held about wealth, family, and identity. The sound of the brush scraping against marble echoed through the vast, empty hall. Richard stood motionless, his mind tangled in confusion. The girl before him worked with quiet precision, her movements steady, almost practiced in the rhythm of humility. There was no sign she knew he was there, no acknowledgement of the towering figure watching from across the room. He took a slow step forward. Years of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals hadn't prepared him for this odd discomfort swelling in his chest. Something about her presence unsettled him. She didn't belong here, or at least not like this. There was something hauntingly familiar in the curve of her face, the tilt of her head. A flicker of recognition brushed his memory, but he couldn't place it. He turned to call for his butler, but the mansion was eerily quiet. Most of the senior staff had been dismissed earlier that year. Only a handful of workers remained, those who cleaned, cooked, and kept the illusion of perfection alive. But he had never seen her before, not once. As he watched, the girl paused to wipe her brow, revealing a faint scar near her temple. It struck him suddenly. He had seen that mark before. In a photograph, long ago. His heart skipped. A memory clawed its way back. A small child with that same scar, laughing on a beach beside a woman whose face he hadn't dared think of in years. The truth began to edge closer, but denial fought back harder. It couldn't be. Not here, not like this. His daughter, if she was even alive, had been raised far from this world. He had been told she was better off. He had believed it. Money, lawyers, secrecy, all meant to keep things simple, clean, untangled. But life was rarely that kind. In the following hours, Richard wandered the mansion like a ghost in his own home. Everywhere he looked, memories collided with the present. The smell of polish reminded him of the day he signed away custody. The family portraits, still hung in neat rows, mocked him with their painted smiles. And every sound of that girl's careful labor echoed like a heartbeat, steady, persistent, alive. By evening, he could no longer ignore it. He returned to the hall only to find her cleaning near the fireplace now, humming a soft tune. It was a song he once heard a woman sing, her mother. The world seemed to tilt under him. His pulse quickened. He didn't know whether to feel guilt, fear, or something else entirely. The empire he had built suddenly felt fragile, like glass beneath his feet. The injustice wasn't just in what he saw, it was in what he had allowed. A man so powerful, so celebrated, yet blind to his own blood, suffering in servitude under his roof. As the night deepened, one truth became undeniable. The past he buried had come home. And this time, it wasn't asking for forgiveness. It was a demanding reckoning. The next moment would break everything he thought he knew about privilege, about love, and about what it truly meant to be a father. The next morning, sunlight cut through the tall windows, painting streaks of gold across the marble floor. Richard stood on the balcony, watching the girl as she arranged flowers near the dining table. The melody she hummed, soft, trembling, was unmistakable now. It was the lullaby her mother used to sing when the world was small and safe. His throat tightened. The truth hit him like a blow. That young girl, humble, unseen, cleaning the remnants of his fortune, was his daughter. The one he'd lost to silence and shame. The one he'd allowed others to hide because of fear. Fear of how the world, and his world, would see him with a black child. The air thickened as years of denial crashed over him. He wanted to speak, to reach out, but the words felt unworthy. She turned, meeting his gaze for the first time. The brush slipped from her hand. In that single glance, decades of injustice, abandonment, and longing collided. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Every scar on her hands told the story of what he'd ignored. Every breath she took in that mansion reeked of the hypocrisy he'd built his life upon. His empire suddenly felt hollow, every success dripping with the cost of what he'd abandoned. And in that silence, something broke, not just between them, but within him. The world saw a billionaire. But she saw a man stripped bare, faced with the truth he could no longer buy his way out of. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. For hours, the house stayed silent. No orders, no footsteps, just the soft hum of a storm breaking within its walls. When Richard finally approached her, he didn't come as the billionaire the world admired. He came as a man stripped of his excuses. The mansion that once represented power now felt like a monument to everything he'd chosen to forget. He offered her a seat at the grand dining table, the same one that had hosted presidents and princes. She hesitated but sat, her gaze steady and strong. It wasn't forgiveness she carried, it was truth. And that truth would not be silenced anymore. In the days that followed, Richard dismantled the walls of his empire piece by piece. The staff whispered about the girl who changed everything, though few knew who she truly was. He released public statements about racial inequality in his corporations, redirected his wealth into scholarships, and publicly acknowledged the daughter he once hid. But redemption doesn't erase the past. It only begins the long journey toward it. The world saw the headlines. The markets reacted. Yet behind every article was a story of two people rebuilding something far more fragile than fortune. Trust. That mansion, once cold and divided, began to echo with warmth again. Not from luxury, but from truth finally being spoken aloud. Because sometimes the most incredible wealth isn't found in what you build, but in the courage to face what you broke. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, share it and ask yourself, what would you have done?